Are you ready to expect the unexpected?
When Mars and Ketu come together, they don't just align, they detonate.
So today, using Vedic astrology, we are going to look at an upcoming conjunction, and it's the conjunction of Mars and Ketu, and it's going to be happening in the sign of Leo.
So before we get into all of our interpretations for what might be taking place during this conjunction, let's go over some of the details of when things are going to be happening. First, on Thursday, May 29th at 1:48 p.m., and that's Central Daylight Time. So if you're in a different time zone, just convert it to where you are. Ketu is going to move into Leo from the sign of Virgo, which it has been transiting for around the past year and a half. So I think it's from somewhere around October of 2023. Ketu has been transiting the sign of Virgo and Rahu in the sign of Pisces. Now they're both going to move backwards through the zodiac into the previous signs. Then on Friday, June 6th at 3:42 p.m. and 30 seconds, Mars is going to move into Leo from the sign of Cancer, which will be the starting point for this conjunction between Mars and Ketu. So this is the first moment that both of these planets are in the same sign beginning this conjunction that we're talking about.
As an interesting side note, on Friday, June 13th at 8:23 a.m., Mars will actually be transiting over Donald Trump's natal Mars position. So this will actually be a really important time for him personally as well. So on Sunday, July 20th, around 8:59 and 15 seconds p.m., Mars will conjunct Ketu exactly, so this is the exact conjunction, at 25 degrees, 25 minutes, and 43 seconds. Again, in the sign of Leo.
So finally, on Monday, July 28th at 9:29 a.m. and 35 seconds exactly, Mars will leave the sign of Leo and enter Virgo, which will bring an end to this intense conjunction. So we have a lot of build-up, and then finally a climax, and then a little bit more than a week later, all of this is kind of over, and some of this chaotic energy can start to dissipate.
So this conjunction can have significant implications for global events and the collective human experience, as well as implications for each individual.
Just to give you an idea of the effects this conjunction can bring, the last time we had a Mars-Ketu conjunction, it took place in the sign of Libra, and this was on October 5th of 2023. So if you just take a second to think about that, that was 2 days right before the October 7th event that took place in the Middle East. So what we're going to be talking about with Mars and Ketu is this kind of energy. Previous to that, in December of 2021 was the last Mars-Ketu conjunction. Mars had just entered into the sign of Scorpio, which was the same sign that Ketu was in at that time, when a volcanic eruption took place in Indonesia. This Mount Semeru erupted. So this Mars-Ketu energy can be extremely, extremely intense.
Yes, and before we get deeper and more detailed into what this conjunction may bring for the world, let's just go over some of the key characteristics of each planet involved, and of course of the sign of Leo. So Ketu, if we remember, represents spirituality, detachment, mysticism, sudden events, liberation, unexpected changes, confusion, or the dissolution of material attachments. It's often said, actually, that Ketu can behave very similarly to the planet Mars. So on the world stage, Ketu can signify upheavals, revolutions, spiritual awakenings, or events that just disrupt the kind of status quo or the, everyday normal routine, basically.
Yeah, and when we look at Mars, Mars is a planet of action, energy, aggression, courage, and conflict. So Mars governs military affairs, leadership, ambition, and assertiveness in general. And on the world stage, Mars is associated with wars, violence, accidents, fires, and destructive actions. So even just now you can start to see how this coming together of Mars and Ketu energy can be really intense.
Right. You can think about it if you know like two people, right? And they have these very specific personalities, right? Yeah. And then you know that they're going to kind of be together in like a intimate environment, like a close-knit environment, but they have very, very strong intense personalities, and they come together. It's like
that's a great way of explaining.
Yeah. I mean, you can understand astrology logically too, just thinking about your own life. So the sign of Leo, where this conjunction is taking place. Leo, of course, is ruled by the sun, which is another fiery planet. It's also a fixed sign, and it's associated with leadership, authority, pride, creativity, and charisma. It's connected to kings or other high-profile figures, of course, political leaders, public displays of power, entertainment, and national pride. Events that take place in Leo can often have a dramatic and visible impact on the world stage.
So specifically relating to this Mars-Ketu conjunction, Mars's fiery, action-oriented nature creates a volatile combination with Ketu's detached, spiritual, and unpredictable energy. This can lead to sudden, explosive events or actions driven by unconscious or karmic forces. In fact, the nature of this conjunction is often described as representing terrorists or terrorism in general, because extremists are motivated by spirituality, at least in their own mind they are. And so when we're thinking about this Mars-Ketu conjunction, it might not necessarily be that something related to terrorism can take place.
Right.
Of course, we did see that with the October 7th event, but it can also just be things happening that are super unexpected, out of the blue, and really intense, and have really dire consequences for the world.
So for the world in general, what we want to kind of look for is potential political or leadership upheavals. So there could be some significant changes or challenges to political leaders. It may lead to the downfall of prominent figures or maybe a sudden shift in power. Scandals, resignations, or unexpected exits of high-profile leaders are possible. New leaders with unconventional approaches may rise. So someone may be different.
So Mars and Ketu conjunction can also signify, in general, as we've kind of covered a little bit, conflict and aggression taking place on the world stage. Increases in the potential for chaos, conflict, or military tensions can lead to sudden outbreaks of violence or terrorist activities. So areas prone to geopolitical instability in the world are where we might see these tensions escalate. So if there's an area in the world that's kind of in the news or kind of in a state of tension where there's already a potential for violence, then that place you might be able to almost guarantee that this Mars-Ketu conjunction will cause it to kind of pop at that time. So also accidents involving fire, explosions, or weaponry are a risk.
So we mentioned spiritual and ideological shifts may happen during this time. So this could inspire collective movements towards higher ideals, spiritual awakening, or detachment from materialism, which, that can manifest as a rise in spirituality, religious movements, particularly those that are challenging established authorities. So that could, of course, be a good thing, people finding spirituality. And a lot of times, if you think about it, when the world or you personally are going through a really difficult time, that's a time that's very common for people to turn towards some sort of spirituality or religion to try to understand things. So we could see that, and it could be very positive. Of course, it could also fuel fanaticism or extreme ideologies, and anything that's extreme could result in extreme actions, and especially violent actions, as we have been already talking about.
Also, economic and social instability could take place at this time. Financial markets may experience uncertainty or volatility, particularly in industries related to luxury, entertainment, or speculative investments, because the fifth house of the original Kalpurush Kundali, the original birth chart, is Leo, and this is taking place in the sign of Leo. So that house is the house of speculation. It's the house of speculative investments. It's the house, to some degree, of the stock market. And so this could mean some volatility for the stock market. But if you're in a position where you could take advantage of that, this could be a time where it could be good to take advantage of that.
So natural events, we mentioned. So Ketu is linked to natural disasters, particularly those that are sudden or unexpected. For example, the eruption we mentioned of Mount Semeru in 2021 in Indonesia. And some additional notes about this Mars Ketu conjunction that's coming. If you look at this conjunction from the moon, okay? So if you look at it from the moon, this is going to be for the entire world when we look at it from the moon, because the moon represents the masses, which is all of the people. It also, of course, represents our minds and our emotions. So how will this affect everybody as a human collective, their minds and emotions? So the conjunction is taking place in the fourth house from the moon, which is going to affect pretty much everybody's sense of security and mental peace, which that makes sense if you think about the potential things that could happen. Additionally, from the moon, from this position, the moon is aspected by the planet Saturn, which is another malefic influence, and at this moment, it will increase this tendency towards negativity. So the moon is also going to be in the nakshatra of Rohini on this day, and it's going to be conjunct Venus, and this will be in the sign of Taurus. And this shows that there could be matters relating to wealth and abundance that could be very important for this transit.
So this is especially the case because Venus is actually in a nakshatra exchange with Mars at the moment of this conjunction. Mars is in Purva Falguni nakshatra and Venus is in Mrigashira nakshatra. Purva Falguni as a nakshatra is also interestingly connected to someone who's like throwing a big party where everyone's going to enjoy, everyone's going to sort of get intoxicated, everyone's going to have all the food, all the sex, all the everything. The Purva Falguni nakshatra is connected to the deity in Vedic astrology, Bhaga. And Bhaga is like this deity of hosting parties, and so this can manifest in a way that's perfectly fine and fun and enjoyable, but one way that this can also manifest as is like orgies and like corrupt sort of like Jeffrey Epstein or Diddy kind of stuff. Diddy actually, I think, has Purva Falguni as his moon nakshatra.
which is interesting.
Yeah, and so I think that at this time, some transformative information about the Diddy parties could come out, leading to a shift in national perspectives about elites and the people that engage in these kind of activities.
Right, and already we know there's been, for a while, a big push for the release of the Jeffrey Epstein files, and I think the demand is going to only get stronger.
Yeah, so it could definitely make sense if we did get some information about that around this time. So also, during the moment of this conjunction, from the moon, the Sun and Mercury are forming a Buddhaditya Yoga in the 3rd house, showing that intelligent and confident communication can help overcome any issues that are happening as a result of this conjunction. So if you're trying to think about in this moment, what is the positive or what is the point that we could take to take advantage of this moment or get the best results out of this moment and mitigate some of the negative effects, taking advantage of that Sun-Mercury conjunction in the 3rd house of communication, showing that intelligent leadership, intelligent communication and decision making could be something that could help overcome some of the chaos or negativity that could be happening at this moment. Taking advantage of that would be something that would be good to do.
For the U.S. specifically, this conjunction is happening in the 9th house of the United States of America's chart. That means this conjunction is going to have to do with the 9th house significations for America. And that might mean facing karmic lessons that are tied to its own global role, moral leadership, ideological stance, and this ideological stance may go through some sort of transformation. Another thing that might be affected is how America relates with other foreign relationships and diplomacy, because the 9th house rules international affairs, and the Ketu Mars conjunction here could lead to aggressive foreign policies with unpredictable and unconventional approaches. Similarly, potential and sudden shifts in alliances or maybe withdrawals from international agreements, and that's part of Ketu's detachment. And high-profile diplomatic incidents or controversies that involve our leadership in America may arise. And we're already seeing this. And so since we're already seeing it, it's very likely that that will continue as we get closer to the conjunction.
Yeah. So legal and ethical challenges can also take place at this time. The 9th house is associated with the judiciary and higher laws. This transit could bring controversial legal battles or challenges to the United States legal system. Debates over religious or ideological principles may also intensify because, remember, the 9th house is kind of the house of religion and spirituality and ideologies that are centered around religion in general. So with such an intense transformation and karmic upheaval happening in the house of religious ideology, this could be a time where people suddenly are having a shift in their ideas about these things, which could be very positive. Ketu's spiritual influence in the 9th house of the United States chart may prompt a collective search for meaning or a shift towards spiritual or philosophical ideas. And as Lindsay mentioned earlier in the video, especially during a time where there can be a lot of chaos or disruption or fear because of intense things taking place on the world stage, that's a time where people can turn toward meaning and spiritual significance. So we may see a rise in non-traditional spiritual movements. So Ketu is going to represent things that are kind of outside of the box. And what's interesting about this during this time, especially for the United States, it might be for the world in general too, but especially in the United States, we're at a place where it's been, probably at least 60 years that we've been in a state, at least ideologically or philosophically, where we're kind of following things as normals philosophically. Like, for example, mass atheism, which was never normal throughout the history of humanity in any country in the world. But we have come to a place where we accept that as normal, at least for the past certain amount of time. And so it's almost like now to be inside the box is outside of the box.
Right.
To be more like, well, does God exist? Or what spiritual practice would I like to incorporate in my life? Or what meaning would I like to have? That's kind of outside of the box. So Ketu could represent that at this time. More people kind of questioning, well, what do I believe, or what is my connection with God or the universe, and what does that mean to me, and how could I incorporate that into my life in some way? That could be starting to happen because of this conjunction.
Right.
Especially in the United States.
So there's going to be a risk of accidents during this time, and this could involve transportation, for example, aviation, because the ninth house can represent a fall from great heights that can literally symbolize planes falling from the sky. And unfortunately
we've been dealing with a lot of
here in America, we've been having a lot of issues with some plane crashes and issues with air traffic control and technology surrounding that. So we're already seeing that. So the question is, are we going to see more of that as we get closer to the conjunction?
Hopefully not.
Hopefully not. We don't. These are all potential possibilities that this conjunction could mean, but this is a possibility. So let's hope and pray for, of course, peace and safety for all of the people in the world. For you particularly, yes, this will impact everyone individually differently depending on your own unique birth chart. So you'll have to kind of take a look at your birth chart and see where this conjunction is taking place for you personally, to kind of understand the effects.
So for example, if this conjunction is taking place in your third house, like if you're a Gemini ascendant, then that's where this conjunction would be taking place. Sudden events could take place relating to your short distance travels, communication, or neighbors. Also, if it's, for example, taking place in your 10th house for a Scorpio ascendant, sudden events or conflicts, or everything we talked about with this Mars Ketu conjunction and everything that it represents, could happen in relation to your career or with your relationship with your boss. So basically, if you just think about that and extrapolate that data and apply it to where is this conjunction taking place in my chart, that's where the things that house represents in your chart are going to have that effect of the intensity happening. And so what are some of the remedies that we can use to try to overcome or mitigate some of the potential difficulty that could be happening during this time? One is, if you're into doing mantra meditation, then chanting mantras for Ketu, so in Ketu's case it would be Om Ketave Namaha, or Mars mantras like Om Bhaumaya Namaha, or depending on where you look for your source of mantras, sometimes the mantra for Mars will be Om Mangalaya Namaha or Om Kujaya Namaha. So whichever one of those that you like the best will work for you in remedying Mars, because all of those are genuine Sanskrit names for Mars. So connecting with those planets through mantras will make peace with those planets in your own life and your own consciousness in a way that can help you pass through this time where those planets are giving some intense results without necessarily having to get as much of those negative results, or at least with the ability to be very conscious of what's going on and tolerate the negative things that are happening and navigate through them successfully.
Yes, and we will link, we have a couple mantra videos for your convenience. We'll link them to the description of this video for you.
So also during this time, avoid impulsive actions and practice patience to counter Mars's aggression and Ketu's chaos. So that's just a very simple thing. You kind of want to be, during this time, especially with the astrological foresight, to know that some chaos or upheaval could be happening, whether it's on the world stage or in your own life, then you kind of want to try to be in the eye of the storm, at least in the privacy of your own mind, so that you can still be calm during this time.
Right.
And maybe take advantage of that Buddha-Ditya Yoga in the third house of Mercury's intelligence and Sun's leadership ability to be the source of strength in your environment to try to overcome this difficulty.
Right.
There's a lot of peace, there's a lot of harmony, there's a lot of healing that's going to come in the fall after this karmic upheaval. So this is a perfect time to keep your attention on that, to get through it and navigate through it successfully, and just stay calm.
Yes, and if you are in a position where you can be a leader, and it doesn't matter how big or how small, we need to look to our leaders to lead us through any difficulty that we may encounter as a nation, as a world, as a family, you know. But if you're able to do that, be a leader, that would be great, and help others through the difficult times that may potentially happen. Or if you have a leader or a mentor that you can look to and trust to do that for you, these are really helpful things. So, as you know, as Jack said, stay strong, pray or hope for peace, and just, look to the healing and advancement that we will get out of this after we get through this difficult time. But it is coming. The light and the truth and the healing is on the horizon.